Jones, look at that balance. Here comes the Cardinal blitz. Geno Smith, light spiral, intercepted by Tyler. We're back.
Well, it's Monday night, a new week has begun. I turn on
Saw that coming, and Dak is coming over after getting that hand hit. And then Shaq Barrett plays, looking at that hand.
The biggest game each week is there.
The touchdown. We saw Philip Lindsay come off the field indicating an issue with his right hand. You can see right there.
Are you ready? Are you ready? Are you ready? We're ready. Are you ready for some football? A Monday night party. Hey, this is rockin' random, Hank. Ready to get the good time started.
Welcome back to week 2 of Are You Ready for a Podcast, the official podcast of the Are You Ready for Some Football Fantasy Football League. I don't want to be here, but I am because I have an obligation to you people. I'm joined by Parker. How's it going?
It's going well, Joe. I'm proud of you for getting out here. I know it's a tough week, tough to experience what the rest of us have been experiencing for years now.
Yeah, well, let's leave it at that. I don't know. Do you want to get to me first or last?
I think we should start with that.
Okay.
That's what the
So
people.
Austin beat me by 1/10 of a point. After a Sunday night football performance in which I needed, I believe, 8.6 points from Dak Prescott and 8.5, sorry. 8.46 from Dak Prescott and CeeDee Lamb, a quarterback and his number one wide receiver. 8.6 points, people. 8.4 points, whatever I said. They scored 8.3. Well, they scored 8.42. And then Dak, there was a screen pass to Ezekiel Elliott for -3 yards and leaves the game because of his fucking thumb. So then Cooper Rush and a drive and a half, whatever, 2 drives, did not complete a pass to CeeDee Lamb. And
Hey,
I lose. What?
He looked at him.
He did look at him. He overthrew him once. And I lost. And yeah, that sucked.
We'll hear from Austin later to figure out what he was doing, but I want to know, what were you doing? Were you watching the game? How are you feeling going into the game? At what point did you start to worry?
So I was watching it at my house with Braden. I was like, we literally had plans all right, we're going to watch it until I start winning, and then we're going to put on House of the Dragon. I was like, figured sometime in the second quarter probably that would happen. So it didn't happen by halftime. I think Dak threw a pick in the first half. I think that's when his pick came.
Yes.
Yeah. So a little worried, but I was like, honestly, this is just kind of like the championship last year with Nick Chubb. He's just going to make me wait it out until I was really just more annoyed. And then the third quarter went on, and Dak is just not playing well at all. He's barely looking at CD when he does. CD's offensive pass interference to get a catch called back. He's dropping passes. And we get to the fourth quarter, and I'm like, I think I might actually lose this football game, this fantasy matchup. And it just kept going, and it kept going. And then we get to 5 minutes, or we get to 5 minutes left, whatever, on that second to last drive. And I pass him, and I'm like, all right, great. And then the Zeke play happens, and then I'm like, what? And then they immediately cut to Dak's thumb, and I'm like, what the hell? What are we doing here? Then he leaves the game, and then that's when I was like, it's all over. I cannot believe I actually lost this game. So I was like, just put on the freaking show. So we put on HBO. The game isn't even over yet. We put on HBO. We start the show, and then I think Braden told me, he's like, well, the Cowboys, they got to stop. They just got the ball back. Do you want to put it back on? to see if Cooper Rush throws a CD. I was like, fine, whatever. So we go through, and he threw for like a couple first downs, not one pass, or he did throw a pass to him, overthrew him, and then he gets like sacked on the 4th and 15 or whatever. And it was like I legitimately did not sleep well that night. It was it's the worst thing that's ever happened to me in fantasy. And I think that includes a stupid fucking 2-point loss in the playoffs in 2015. Because at least that got avenged by me beating Hunter. I don't even like, there's like 1,000 things that could have happened differently where this game, like I was the Atlanta Falcons and I had the 99.8% chance to win. And I don't know how I lost.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's fair. You know, we were texting about it, and I was not even joking when I was like, I mean, I don't think there's any way Joe loses this game. Like, I mean, it's just too easy. You were too close. And that Dak injury, that's going to be an all-timer. That's just with the timing of it, the way he took the lead and then went backwards, and it just, that was brutal. It's tough to watch, I will say. It's hard to watch from the couch. I was glued to the fantasy cast, just refreshing it, just watching your game, because I was like, I mean, I can't imagine this possibly happens to Joe, but I had to watch. It was electric television.
And listen, I don't want to say this was all bad luck. There were a couple bad managerial decisions. 11:45 on Sunday, I saw the field, what Soldier Field looked like, and I got really scared for Darnell Mooney. Almost took him out for Michael Carter. Didn't. That would have easily won me the game. Last week, I thought about taking out Dak, and I thought about dropping Dak for Kirk Cousins because I was like, man, I really don't like this matchup for Dak. But I was like, you know what? He's my starter. I got him for the stack with CD. Got to just ride it out for a week. Obviously, would have won easily if I had just dropped him. So yeah, there were some managerial decisions, but also about as brutal of a loss as you can have. But if we want to actually like get into what this means for the teams, I feel really badly about my team right now. Not really the Dak so much. Like he's kind of a waiver, like a streaming quarterback. It's kind of whatever. I mean, it's way worse for CD. So the guy I spent $50 on is his production is his production will be cut into greatly. Travis Etienne did not or worried me very much. McCaffrey did not have a very McCaffrey game. Darnell Mooney, I'm willing to throw out because of the weather conditions. Just a lot I did not like about my team. I would honestly be concerned if I was Austin too, but like we talked about a lot last year. It's really important to get these wins when you don't have a good performance are huge. Like they end up coming back big later in the season. So yeah, there's concerns for Austin's teams for sure, but I mean getting that one in the win column is huge.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think, you know, I do agree. I feel worse about your team now than I did before last week. We'll get to the power rankings and all. I think that maybe that's somewhat of an overreaction based on comparing you to the other teams around you. But I do agree. But okay, well, you know, I think that pretty much sums it up. That was a good explanation. Tough to watch from the outside looking in, but I'm glad it wasn't me this time.
And, yeah, I'm sure you hated that.
I did. It was very hard to watch.
Oh, yeah.
I always root for chaos, but hate to see it go down that way.
Yeah. So anyway, we'll move on. So Nick was the highest scorer of the week. Pretty low scoring week around the league.
Yeah,
only
it was actually the lowest scoring week one since 2018.
That's not very surprising actually.
We averaged 102 points this week.
Yeah. So Nick was the only one who surpassed 120 points. He scored 127, defeated Dan, who put up a very respectable 115. But yeah, like so the Dak injury also hurt Zeke on Nick's team, but outside of that, I mean, he was just, his team was awesome. And I guess outside of Michael Williams, but I think Michael Williams will have better days. His team was just awesome. His receivers are great. The two receivers he traded for from with Morgan, they came out in a big way with their new quarterbacks. And yeah, I mean, I did not feel, I guess we'll get to the power rankings, but you know, I feel about as strongly as ever as I do of Nick's team. And you know, Dan's team, I guess I'm pretty impressed with the 115 performance. He had a couple injuries in there with Godwin and Elijah Mitchell, which will definitely hurt. But he outperformed my expectations in week 1, I guess.
Yeah, I agree. Dan definitely outperformed the expectations, even with the Elijah Mitchell injury. I think that duo of Jamar Chase and Travis Kelce is going to be a really good pair all year, especially the Jamar Chase Joe Burrow stack. But you know, Nick's top 2 receivers getting 30 targets. You had him first in your power rankings. I think I had him third, and yeah, he just proved it this week. Proved why this is a legit, really good elite level team. I'm still have some questions about his running backs, but hard to ask those questions after he scores highest points week 1.
Yeah, I mean, I think you know, his team is very impressive, and yeah, I think he'll be able to his receivers will be able to kind of offset those running backs for the foreseeable future here. So we'll move on. Hunter, another team we're both very high on, put up 118, blew out Morgan. Morgan dealt with some pretty had some pretty tough injury luck with Keenan Allen and T. Higgins and Najee Harris, although it looks like Najee might be okay. And possibly T too. I guess we'll see. But yeah, like Hunter's team didn't even, like, his running back duo, which I think we both agree is the best in the league, didn't perform at all, and it just didn't matter because he has Justin Jefferson, who is prime for possibly the overall wide receiver 1 and fantasy. Gabe Davis, obviously big game. And yeah, Hunter just like a really solid performance. I don't know, not much to say about Morgan's team. I guess the injuries are concerning. Dameon Pierce is very concerning, but not a lot to say other than that. Yeah,
red flags all over Morgan's team. But if you're gonna lose, might as well get thumped. And Hunter's team, this is the team I had at the top, and this is, you know, I think I feel about Hunter how you feel about Nick. This team just proved what I already thought. The floor is so high with this team that, yeah, I agree with your analysis. Nothing really to add here.
Okay, so who's this next? Couple at 117. Oh, so we got, so what? We'll move on to you. 117.7, big win over Grant.
Thomas, actually. Thomas.
Oh, my bad. I read that as a 0.28. My bad. Yeah, so Thomas actually barely outscored you by 0.08. Imagine if y'all two of them. Yeah, very lucky y'all two weren't playing, because that overshadowed me and Austin. Yeah, so Thomas
pissed about that Russell Wilson 4th down.
That's right. And screaming at Nathaniel Hackett. Yeah, so Thomas, I'm sorry, put up 117.8 or 0.78 against beat Colin by 10. Yeah, Thomas's team, I think again we both really liked. You know, 3 of the running backs came up pretty big. You know, you got to like the performances from them. And you know, really bad, or I guess Juju was fine, but pretty bad performances from his receivers that I really liked. I know you were a little lower on. I think we'll see bounce backs definitely from Allen Robinson. Juju, I think you're kind of in a weird receiver situation there where a different guy will blow up every week. But yeah, I think I don't know if there's a ton to say. I think again, to maximize his potential, I think he needs to Colin's going to need to trade Mahomes here. Just that's 34.9 points on his bench. There were discussions with me after Dak went down. The discussions did not go very far. And yeah, so I think I am having less overreactions, I think, than I did last year. I don't know. We talked about this a little bit. Like, I kind of feel similarly about a lot of the teams that I did before the season, and that kind of applies here.
Yeah, I mean, week 1, you had a lot of the highly drafted players perform well. So I do agree with you in general that I feel similarly about a lot of the teams. This is probably the best matchup in terms of two teams that I think are really up at the upper end of the league on the week. And I am, I would say I'm a little bit concerned about Collins' team. I had concerns about his flexes and his depth. And I think those concerns were validated pretty well in week one, with Chase Claypool and Tyler Lockett both kind of sucking, and then MVS not really inspiring much. But he does have James Robinson on his bench who could step in and fill that role. So I still have some question marks with Collins' team, for sure. But I think that the better team won, and I think that I really like Nick's team this year.
You mean Thomas?
Like the receiver questions. I mean, yeah, Thomas. Sorry.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
do like Nick's team, but I really like Thomas.
Yeah. No, yeah. I think the James Robinson point's a big one, and Drake London. I think those guys. If I don't like Tyler Lockett or Chase Claypool at all as his flexes, but I think he can easily put those other two guys, moving forward. And then again, like we keep hammering home, the Mahomes return needs something out of it. So now we'll move on to you.
But what can you get for Mahomes? Like
I mean, we went off. I asked Colin that question, and he asked for Jalen Waddle and a bench player, to which I said absolutely not. And
yeah, so like that's my point, is that like you're saying absolutely not for that, and that's like a pretty.
Jalen Waddle's like a good receiver. I think you could get.
Yeah, but he's probably like a mid-range wide receiver too.
So you could get a flex for him, right?
Yeah, I mean you probably can get a flex for him.
I mean trade value. Let's see here. Trade value has. Now this isn't a perfect metric, but it has. Mahomes is a 16. You got like Kareem Hunt 17.5. Dobbins is at 14 right now. Amon-Ra is at 15.5, and Marquise Brown's at 16.5. So I don't really fully agree with, I guess, these values, but
I guess
that's also for one flex. We're a two flex, so like a flex would be a little more valuable.
That's my point, is that like I think that we keep saying, oh, once he gets some Mahomes return, but
he's going to.
Yeah, but at some point you have to question, like, is the Mahomes return actually going to be like?
I think it'll be a flex player. I think it'll be a starter. I think you got to think that another quarterback's going to get hurt. Again, Dak went down. Dak was not a big part of my team, so I didn't really mind going to the waiver wire at all. But say, I don't know, like Grant loses Lamar or something like that, or Hunter loses Kyler. I don't know, like that, and that's like a bigger part of their team. Like, and maybe I don't know, maybe they want to go in on Mahomes. Who knows? Like, or maybe somebody gets desperate in a couple weeks. Some team is 0-3, 1-3. Not getting a lot of quarterback production, and they want to go for it. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think that he will move Mahomes. I don't doubt that. I just doubt that like who he gets from Mahomes is going to make me feel a lot better about his team. Like, I think me seeing Mahomes on his bench kind of makes me think like, oh, well, he's going to get something. He's going to get something. But then it's like, well, maybe, but like, is he going to get something that's that much better than Drake London?
But also, I think you could. Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. I think you can maybe use him to upgrade at a position, maybe. Because I was kind of thinking about that. I was like, well, what if I got Mahomes and then I just downgraded at like, I don't know, like receiver or somewhere, like.
Yeah,
so, I don't
know. Yeah, like I guess that I see that. Like maybe he trades like Mahomes and Marquise Brown and gets like a low end wide receiver one or something like that.
Yeah,
Yeah, maybe so.
Yeah.
Anyway,
so now we'll move on to you. You beat Grant 117.7 to 90.32. Grant just forgot to bench J.K. Dobbins. J.K. Dobbins got declared out on Sunday morning, and Grant didn't take him out. Really, there's nothing he could have done. He could have made it closer if he had put in DJ Chark. It would have made it a 14-point game as opposed to a 27-point game.
Which would have been a weird move.
Yeah, most likely he would have put in Elijah Moore, which would have just made it a 20-point game. So didn't really make a difference there. But remember to check your lineups right before the games kick off. So yeah, I mean, I again, you were my second-ranked team preseason. No real notions to dispel it, and honestly, like I even feel better about your team now because you have Darrell Henderson, who looks like he's the starting running back for the Rams, which will very likely be a good offense moving forward. So I feel even more strongly about your team. I mean, Taylor and Cup did, exactly what you expect from them all season, and they had great games. And those are just obviously two tremendous foundations to build your team upon. For Grant, I don't know. I'm surprised Nick Chubb outscored Leonard Fournette. Just looking at this, I did not feel like Nick Chubb had that good of a game, and it felt like Fournette did. But whatever. I mean, I think Grant, he's got, I guess, 3 running backs you can feel good about. The receivers didn't really come through. Yeah, I don't know. I'm just kind of lukewarm on it, like I was, preseason. I think it seems fine. I definitely think he can turn it into something. Not ruling him, not counting him out at all. But yeah, I think he's got to make a couple more moves for me to really feel confident in it.
It's fine, and he didn't get in the end zone a lot, which kind of makes it look worse. I mean, Fournette and Chubb, had 28 points combined, and that was all yards, no touchdowns. So, and then he got 2 zeros in his starting lineup, and he still scored 90 points. So, I think he's not far from being a good team. I think he's got really good pieces that I like. But yeah, I mean, a great performance from me. I was really happy with Jonathan Taylor and Cooper Kupp. I agree with you. I'm moving higher on my team with Darrell Henderson, and even with Julio Jones looking like he's going to be involved, and Khalil Herbert had a role. So I was happy with it for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that's a rare sight for you to be, happy with your team through a week of the fantasy season.
It is. But you know what? We're coming in with a positive attitude this year, so we'll see if that changes things.
I respect it. And so our final matchup of the week, Zach, beat Ben by 39 points, 109.1 to 70.2. Zach was able to do this by getting 4 points from his starting quarterback. Must be nice. And yeah, so I think my takeaway is I was a lot more impressed by Zach's team than I talked about preseason. I think it's a pretty big if. Obviously, he's not going to have these 30-point weeks, but if Saquon can be like a legit low end RB1, high end RB2, I just think that's huge for him. And then Deontay, it's only 9 points, but I thought like he looked pretty good. And Antonio Gibson, obviously, with Brian Robinson still out, his role will be nice there, and he's going to get better performances from Rodgers. So I was pretty impressed by his team, and Jahan Dotson on his bench, I think is a guy he can put in a starting lineup, going forward. So I was actually pretty impressed by Zach's team, even though he only put up 109. And then Ben, I hated his team after the draft. Getting nothing from Kyle Pitts is not going to help you. Nice little performance from Miles Sanders there. Judy also with a long touchdown. So I guess those are his 2 positives, but I just think it's going to be a long year for him.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. Obviously, I think I did move up on Ben's team a little bit because of the Miles Sanders performance, because of the Judy performance, and even because of Cordero Patterson on his bench. I think, now if he's got 3 reliable running backs, and he's got, so I think his receiver depth is going to end up being okay, although they didn't all have great games. Then that makes me maybe move him up a little bit. I mean, his running back situation at this point, looking at it, is not nearly as bad as Morgan or Dan. Nowhere close.
That's true.
So
also, yeah, I didn't. He benched Cordero, who had a great game. So he'll start Cordero probably going forward. So that'll definitely help. But God, there's just like such little upside. Like Miles Sanders, we're both anti Miles Sanders guys. I think we made it pretty clear. I can't see him being as good as he was this past weekend.
I mean, the yards have been there. He just needs the goal line work, and they obviously spread it around. All 4 of them got a touchdown, but he was the bell cow for sure, which is good to see.
Yeah, that's true. But
I don't disagree with you.
They're also playing the
Lions.
Lions.
Great, but I think I think we'll get to it in the power rankings, but my outlook definitely changed on his team, although I still don't think it's great.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the argument for his team would be you got nothing from Devonta Smith, who's going to be, and you would think, pretty good. Nothing from Pitts, who should be really good. Very little from Stafford, who you'll get better performances from, and then you bench Cordero. So, like, I see the argument for sure, but like, I don't know. I mean, 70, like it just didn't feel like in that shocking of a 70. Like I was looking at like I was kind of checking the scores the other day. I was like, hey, Ben's at projected 70. Yeah, that makes sense. Whatever. Like so I don't know.
Yeah. No, I mean, yeah, I don't think we're that far apart on his team, but I do think I changed my outlook after this game. And then for Zach, I mean, I think that Saquon's a fraud. I don't know what to say. I think that if you look at Zach's team and you go, oh, he's got 2 running back ones and a top 5 receiver, then you could argue that this is the top 5 team in the league. But I don't look at it that way.
I wouldn't quite put Saquon at running back 1, but I do think high end running back 2.
All right. Well, you ready for some power rankings?
Yeah, let's get to it.
Before we
we'll
start, because I think this is an interesting question, just looking at teams. If you had to kind of make a tier break, like top tier, bottom tier, I think, because I think our rankings would be similar, but I'm pretty sure you would put it in the same place. How many teams would you say are in the top tier? You don't say they are, but just how many?
Oh, I'm quibbling on this 4th one. I would say 3, maybe 4.
Wow. Okay. Then we do differ on opinions.
Oh, what do you have?
I
1?
have 5. I think there's 5.
Oh,
I think there's
okay.
a clear
Oh,
break
okay.
after 5 to me.
Oh, really? Yeah. See, I think there's a gap between 4 and 5.
All right. Well, then let's get to our rankings.
Okay. So yeah, we'll start. We'll go 12 to 1 like usual. We just talked about it. I don't think anybody's gonna be surprised by my number 12. It's still Ben. I thought he had the worst draft. He had the worst week 1. I don't know what there is more to say.
Yeah, I mean, I touched on that. I don't disagree with you. I think Ben's still the worst team, but I think that his situation is better than it initially appeared. I think that 10, 11, and 12 are close to me, very close. I still slightly think his team is the worst, just because I don't think he's got really elite talent anywhere. I don't think he's got, especially now with more questions about Kyle Pitts, I don't think he's got a top 2 or 3 position group anywhere across the board. So that leaves him at 12. But I do like his running backs, and if one more week of Connor, Sanders, and Patterson all looking good, he probably won't be 12 for long, because I think running backs are very important in fantasy.
Yeah, I think if the problem is, I think like if his if like a lot of things like break right for him, I think the floor is pretty good, but I don't know. I still don't really see the ceiling, but whatever. We talked about it enough. I think we'll agree on 11 here, especially kind of after the injuries this week. I've got Morgan at 11. I just rough week for him. The trade with Nick through 1 week really did not work out. One of his receivers got hurt. Dameon Pierce does not appear to be a viable option as a running back too, so he had to go and be aggressive on Jeff Wilson, which I do like that move, to spend up for a guy that will probably be a starting running back for 6 weeks at least. But yeah, it's not looking great for Morgan right now.
Well, we actually won't agree on who's number 11, because I've still got Dan there.
Okay.
I think that I kind of decided when I was looking at it that my 11th team was going to be the team that didn't end up getting Jeff Wilson, and instead ended up with Rex Burkhead, and that's Dan. His running back situation scares the shit out of me. Rashad Penny, Kareem Hunt, Rex Burkhead is a problem. And I don't think Damian Harris is going to be good this year. Obviously, Travis Kelce is still elite, but he's Travis Kelce, Jamar Chase, and nothing else at this point. So I've got Dan at 11.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, I've got Dan at 10. And yeah, I think the thinking, which I disagree with, but I don't hate, is his thinking is he got a bunch of pretty low tier running backs, but like kind of in that I don't know 30 to 4 in the 30s in the rankings, and he was kind of hoping a couple of them hit. I mean, Kareem Hunt's hit through 1 week. Obviously, it was 2 touchdowns, and we'll see how sustainable that is. But yeah, I still don't hate the strategy. I don't really agree with it. I kind of think the Patriots backfield will be kind of muddied the whole year. And yeah, same with the I don't really like having being tied to the Seahawks backfield either. And so I'm not saying I love Dan's team at all, but I do think Kelce and Jamar is a really good anchor for a team that a really good base for a team that I don't quite think Morgan has. It's pretty close, but I have Dan at 10.
Yeah, I've got Morgan at 10. Do you agree that there's like the bottom three is pretty clear?
Yeah, no, those are clear on my bottom three.
I got Morgan at 10. Yeah, I still have some questions about his running backs. I didn't love Najee coming in, and now he's injured. But he does have Debo Samuel, who's going to be, partially a running back and a receiver. He's got Jeff Wilson, T. Higgins, Jalen Hurts. There's just more pieces that I like.
Yeah, I actually didn't think of that. Like, I don't love having Jeff. I guess he had to do it, but I don't love having Jeff if you have Debo.
Yeah, that's true. That is something to question. But then, and the other thing is, like, I don't think Damian Pierce is just useless. I think eventually he's going to take that job over. So I got Morgan at 10. My question is, out of these bottom three, because we did say that we think there's kind of a clear tier break here, which of these is most likely to be the team that we're just wrong about? That just makes the playoffs.
I think Morgan, if he gets all his guys back, I think, I still like like when he gets Keenan and T back, and yeah, I still like those guys. And yeah, Debo definitely, I think his production will go up. Najee again, I think of Najee as just a completely like fine, pretty high floor running back. And then I like his quarterback more than Dan's by a lot. So yeah, I would definitely say Morgan.
I agree. I think Morgan. I think he's got the most pieces. He's got opportunity with Gallup and Damian Pierce and stuff to get better as the season goes on. Even Kenneth Walker. So I think Morgan. I have him at 10 for now, but I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up in the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, like even Ben, like Ben almost made the playoffs last year. I hated his team last year after the Cup trade, and he almost made the playoffs. So it's been 1 week. I wouldn't be surprised if anybody makes the playoffs. But no, yeah, I completely agree. So number 9, I dropped myself to number 9. I don't know how you can argue otherwise. There's a couple other teams, and there's a couple other teams. One of them beat me, so I don't really know how you can justify having me over that team. And then a couple other teams with good performances this week. So yeah, I moved myself down to 9. Do not like the direction I'm heading in. Just a lot of question marks, and I was concerned about this after the draft, but like I just have a lot of guys that are on bad offenses, and that's just a terrifying place to be. Like Christian McCaffrey, bad offense. Travis Etienne, bad. CeeDee Lamb is going to be bad until Dak gets back. Waddle's on a pretty good offense, but he's the number 2 option. Pittman's the number 2 option on a pretty good offense. Darnell Mooney, bad offense. Michael Carter, bad offense. It's just got like Josh Palmer, who I'm going to start for 1 week. He's on a really good offense, but that's kind of a 1 week play. So yeah, it's just like I probably should have thought this out a little more after the draft, but yeah, I don't love where my team's at right now.
Yeah, so my reflex was to do the same thing, to put you at 9. But then I looked and I compared you to other teams, and I just can't do it. I got Zach at 9. Like I said, Saquon's a fraud. No doubt in my mind, Saquon's a fraud. And I just don't like the rest of his team that much. I think Dalvin is good, but I don't know that he's for sure going to be the Dalvin that he used to be. He's getting a little gray behind the ears, and he's in a pass-heavy offense now. So that makes me question things. And then his depth, I don't know. His team has the least to be excited about, to me, of these next this group of 4 that I see is pretty similar. So I've got Zach at number 9.
Okay, yeah, I disagree. I like Zach's team a little bit. I've got Austin at 8. I would definitely vote Austin at 9, maybe even 10 below Dan. Although probably not. Had he lost to me, but he didn't, and I think the win is the 1 in the win column is a big thing. So yeah, I've got him at 8. Really concerned about the running backs for him, or the running back 2, I guess, because you don't know if you can trust Cam Akers at all, and then he doesn't really have another option, so he kind of has to ride out Cam Akers for at least another week, and then see if he wants to trade one of his receivers, or see what happens on the waiver wire. So don't love the running backs at all. Receivers are good, but they're no, I don't think they're on par with Nick's receivers, or honestly, like even my receivers kind of like Pittman's great, and actually they're about on par with my receivers. But yeah, so I don't really love Austin's team right now, but he does have a he does have a big 1-0 there after week 1.
Well, I agree and disagree. I have Austin at 8, so I agree in that way. I think his receivers are better than yours, so I don't know what you're talking about with that. But his running backs are a big problem, and that's why I have him still at number 8 because he's got Raheem Mostert, Cam Akers, and Madison as his second, third, and fourth running backs. That is extremely bad. I don't think they're just backups. He's got 3 backups, and he's got to start one of them every single week. And Kamara's hurt. I'm not even sure that Kamara's a top 10 guy right now. So just a running back question for me. I think his receiver group, I really like Tyreek Hill this year. I think McLaurin, Metcalf, Michael Thomas. I mean, he's going to have the top half of the league receiver group, but the running backs hold him back significantly, and that's why I have him at 8, despite the win this week.
I don't know. I like Tyreek. I like Michael Thomas. Terry's starting to scare me there, like with Dotson and Samuel, like, and Carson Wentz is his quarterback. Like, you're not going to play the Jags every week, so I'm actually not as quite as high. I would agree he does have better receivers than me, but I'm not quite as high on them as you are. So we'll move on to 7. I kept Colin at 7. Again, just pretty standard week. Like we talked about how he lost, but I don't mind his team at all. I think Drake London and James Robinson potentially becoming flexes for him is nice. Again, we had the Mahomes debate. I don't know if he trades him anytime soon, but he eventually will. And yeah, so it is really impressive that he has as good of a team as he does with spending as much capital as he did on a backup quarterback and a backup receiver. But yeah, I remain high on those receivers and running back situation. Honestly, I would be slightly concerned about David Montgomery and a little concerned about Eckler. Like, didn't get a huge carry percentage or carry rate, so slightly concerned. But I think both of those guys are still pretty good, and Andrews will have better weeks. So yeah, I've got Colin at 7.
I've got you at 7 still, 1 spot ahead of Austin despite the loss. And the reason why, to me, it comes down to 3 words. Same, you heard this from me last year. Christian McCaffrey. That's enough for me to put you at number 7. That's what you have that none of the teams below you don't. And really, I think that the Dak thing obviously doesn't hurt that bad. He's a streamable quarterback anyway, and the CeeDee Lamb thing hurts, but I think you drafted him to be a receiver 1 and Pittman to be a receiver 2, and you can just flip their roles because I think I went up on Pittman as much as I went down on Lamb this week. So I don't look at your team that much differently than I did last week, with the exception of I think your ceiling might be a little bit lower because I thought that Dak and CD stack might be really, really good, and now I'm not so sure. And then same thing with ETN. I thought he might just dominate the backfield, and now I'm not so sure. So I did move down on your team a little bit, and I think I had you at maybe 5 last week, and now I've got you at 7. But yeah, Christian McCaffrey.
Yeah, just not great whenever you said this. Just not great whenever you draft the guy in a backfield whose backfield mate is the first person ever to like successfully return from an Achilles injury.
Yeah, that's tough. That's tough.
Yeah, you don't love seeing that. Well, I mean, good for James Robinson, just not good for my team. Yeah, so at number 6, I think this is probably our biggest disagreement. I've got Zach at 6. Again, I was pretty impressed by his team. I think he's got a solid starting lineup. Just kind of looking at trade value, all of his guys on his bench are at 0 trade value, so I guess not a good bench. But I still like the starting lineup. I think better days are ahead for Dalvin. I still love Diggs. Deontay, I think will be a little bit better than I thought he would be. And Saquon obviously is, I guess, our big disagreement. I'm higher on him than you are. And yeah, so I think he's got 3, like a really good running back trio. I think he's got a good receiver duo, and then Jahan Dotson, if he can step up as a flex too. I think that's kind of a pretty complete starting lineup there with Aaron Rodgers. So yeah, Zach at 6 for me, and Parker is away from his screen for the moment. So Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think Saquon's a fraud. But sorry,
Yeah.
I thought I heard someone walking around my house, and it's 11:38 at night, so that would be very odd. But yeah, no, I think I don't know. I don't think I see the potential as much in Zach's team. I'm just slower on his running backs. Is probably the big difference between you and I. That's why I got him at 9. But I think 6 to 9 is pretty close to me. And number 6 for me is Grant. I'm kind of surprised. I don't know. I guess I'm not really surprised. I feel like his team. I see it similarly to how I did before. I'm surprised at how much I like his running back depth now because I thought that was one of the things I was concerned about before the year. But I moved down on his receivers as much as I moved up on his running backs. And so he kind of stays the same for me at number 6. Cole Kmet concerns me as well. I don't know that. I don't know. I kind of thought Lamar would just run away and be the number 1 quarterback, which I guess he still could after 1 week. But he played the Jets and didn't have maybe the performance I was expecting. I thought he'd be angry about the contract, which I'm sure he is. But yeah, so I got Grant at number 6. Maybe feel a little bit worse about the upside. So I think he's the next one out of the what I think is a pretty clear top 5.
Yeah, see, I think it's a clear top 4. I have Grant at 5, and yeah, I agree. I think 5 through 9, like you have 6 through 9 is close. I think it's 5 through 9 is pretty close. And yeah, even though Grant like didn't have the best week, I guess obviously like had he just made the swap for Elijah Moore, it's only that's only a 97-point week, but still like I don't know. I think Fournette and Chubb were kind of 2 big concerns I had, and that's alleviated a little bit. Clyde obviously came through big, and then I think we still have to see with Dobbins. Like I think it's a little too early to tell. Obviously, he hasn't played a game yet this year, so Kmet will have better games. I think Sutton will have a lot better games. So yeah, I'm still not super high on his team because I do think there's a gap between 4 and 5, but yeah, I mean we have 6 playoff teams, and even though he's 0-1, I think he's got as good a shot as anybody to make the playoffs and in that lower tier.
Well, this is hilarious based on our earlier conversation, but I think the 5th team that's in my top tier is Colin, because I think I rose a lot on his receivers this week with Hollywood Brown and Amon-Ra St. Brown, and then Josh Allen is the number 1 quarterback hands down. I do see some concerns with Eckler, but I don't know. I really like his team overall. I don't know about his receivers. I think his flexes are sort of bad, but I do think he will figure that out with the trade capital he has with Mahomes. So I moved Colin to number 5, and he's the last one I think in my elite tier.
Yeah, I got to be honest. I kind of threw my power rankings together last minute. I didn't honestly after the loss on Sunday. I have not looked at much fantasy stuff. I put in waiver bids the other night, and that was about it. So I didn't pay super close attention to how everybody did once I lost. But I did, kind of. I'm kind of just basing the Grant thing off of being impressed from Chubb and Fournette, who I was not super high on coming into the year. So maybe not the most accurate ranking 5 through 9 for me, but I do still feel pretty confidently about my top 4. We'll start off at 4, and for me that is Thomas. Really good running back performances. I think the receivers will be better, and yeah, I don't know. There's I feel very similarly as I did last week. I had him at 4 last week, so not a ton. Didn't really change my opinion a bunch on Thomas's team.
Yeah, I've got my team at 4, maybe the highest I've ever ranked my team. I was definitely encouraged by Jonathan Taylor and the Cooper Kupp usage. Still, I don't know. I think I like the bottom end of my bench better, but I like the top end of my bench worse now that Robert Woods seems to be useless, and I have a lot of questions about Chase Edmonds, and I don't know. I think 4 is a good ranking for me. Definitely one of the better teams in the league, but I still have some question marks with the everything besides Jonathan Taylor and Cooper Kupp.
Yeah, man, that I'm very impressed. This is as positive as you've been about your team on a podcast that we've done so far. Yeah, or ever in the league's history. Yeah, so we'll move on to 3. Again, I'll keep it boring. I had Hunter at 3 last week. I have Hunter at 3 this week. I think Justin Jefferson I think is a stud, and is going to carry him through. He's going to have a lot of those Cooper Cup games that were on Hunter's team last year. And then I think Derrick Henry and Aaron Jones will be better, but you never know. And Derrick Henry is on a worse offense this year. He's gonna have some worse game scripts. Doesn't really catch passes. So I guess that's a little concerning, but I still really like Derrick Henry and I still love Aaron Jones. So I still really like Hunter's running backs and receivers. His quarterback's very good. And yeah, I think the flexes are, a little concerning, but he can figure that out, and I think he'll get good enough. Again, you can't have strengths everywhere, and if his top 4 is so strong, then or top 5 is so strong, then his flexes will be a little weaker, and I think he's very willing to make that trade, and that's an easier thing to alleviate as the season goes on. And he made it through 1 week, and those top 4 carried him, or the top 5, excuse me, carried him through 1 week. He's 1-0, and I think he's in a really good spot.
I've got Nick down at number 3. I think I had him at number 2 last week. I might have him at 3. I'm not really sure, but I've got him at 3. I think obviously the receivers, AJ Brown, Devontae Adams, left a huge impression, very good. But I have more questions than most about his running backs, probably. I know Zeke looked good, but I think that offense is going to really, really struggle. And I still don't trust AJ Dillon fully. So I've got him at 3. I think he's still a really good team. Obviously, elite wide receivers, but the running backs are still what holds him back from the top 2.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I kept you at 2. I went really boring with it, and again, nothing really to dissuade me. You put out a pretty dominant performance. Got great performances from your top 2 guys. Got solid performances elsewhere, and just kind of rolled on through. And Darrell Henderson, I think, is big for you. I think Singletary will get more work as the season goes on, because James Cook and Zach Moss did not look very good on Thursday night. So yeah, and then I think you've built a little bit of depth. You've got, like we're talking about, with you've got a lot of options for our matchup this week as your flexes. So yeah, I think you're in a really good spot, and can't really see a huge weakness in your team right now. Just don't love the upside quite as much as I like Nick's.
Yeah, and then the for me, number 2, I've got Thomas. The running backs, I really was impressed by Joe Mixon and DeAndre Swift this week, and Javonte Williams and Breece Hall. He got 1 million targets to his running backs. I think that makes me really like his team. Allen Robinson had a down week, but I don't think he's going to be bad all year. I watched that entire game, and I watched a lot of the Chiefs game, and I think Juju's going to be good. So honestly, I think you can make an argument for Thomas at number 1 if his bench wasn't so goddamn bad. So I've got Thomas at 2.
Yeah, I don't understand why Odell is still on Thomas's bench. That's just Odell and AJ Green, and yeah, it just doesn't make sense. Anyway, yeah, so I've got Nick at 1. I think I thought about putting you at 1, but just Devontae and AJ Brown were just so good.
30 targets between them.
Yeah, they were just so good, and showed that they're going to be really good. And Mike Evans was good, and yeah, I do think the Zeke injury, the Dak injury is. I think that's big for Zeke, obviously. But I mean, Jerry Jones is saying he's going to be back in a month, so I guess we'll see with that. Maybe it won't affect him for too long. I think AJ Dillon is going to have a great year. I like AJ Dillon as running back too, and he was able to put up the highest points in the league. And Mike Williams, who's a really high upside guy, did not much for him. Herbert had a pretty pedestrian game for his standards, so. Yeah, I think Nick's team still has the highest upside of anybody. He scored the most points in the league this week, and he didn't even have as good of a week as he possibly could have. So I have Nick at 1, and that means you still have Hunter at 1.
I do. I still have Hunter at 1. He came out and scored second most points in the league with like 17 combined points from Aaron Jones and Derrick Henry. I still love Aaron Jones this year. I still love Derrick Henry this year. And then the bottom end of his depth is just proving to be more than I thought it was. Curtis Samuel looks like someone you could play now. Kenyon Drake is a starter now. So I really like Hunter's team. And I'm even higher on them now. He's got Tyler Higbee, who's going to be an upgrade. I think, Yeah, it's not even really that close. I think he's pretty clear number one to me.
Okay, yeah, that's fair.
I guess my other thing, who's the team do you think you've changed your opinion on the most after 1 week besides yourself?
I think Zach. I think that he went up 3 spots in my rankings. Just Saquon obviously plays a big part in that. Deontay played a part in that. Antonio Gibson, I think after the Brian Robinson situation, obviously recorded after that, and then Jahan Dotson I like quite a bit. So I think just those guys that I was a little more unsure of coming into the year had good week ones, and I think that that kind of elevated my opinion of his team. What about you?
I think mine weirdly has been, despite not moving anywhere in my rankings. I think I just feel so much better about his running back situation than I did before, and I think that his receivers are going to be okay. I don't think receivers are that big of a problem, and then he's got Kyle Pitts. So I look at it, and I'm like, wouldn't shock me if this is a playoff team now, which I would have said 0.0 chance before the season started. So I think Ben, even though he's still at 12 for me.
Yeah, I mean, I do really like the running back situation. Or not really like, but like a lot more, I guess. But I think I like the receiver situation less. And maybe I'm just being overreactionary week one. Like I liked his receiver depth kind of coming into the year, and now I don't know. But yeah, I think he was pretty clearly a last in my preseason rankings. Like I gave him a D, and then the next closest team was like a C minus. So I guess that I would close the gap a little bit more between him and 11, but not by much.
All right, well, that's all I got.
Yeah, this has been a very long podcast. We recorded Austin's part early, spoiler alert. So we've been recording for like an hour and a half now. So that's what you'll hear next. Do you have anything else, Parker?
No.
All right. So we will now have an interview with Austin. We now welcome back Austin to the podcast.
Hey,
Parker, you got anything?
Joe, I thought you were the host now.
I'll let you run this one.
All right, so obviously, what better place to start than week one? Obviously, an incredible finish to the game. Austin, I know that you weren't. You said in the group meet you weren't actively watching the game, but at what point did you start to think maybe you had a shadow of a chance?
I guess it was like around the beginning of the fourth quarter. It was just like they had 2 drives, but just nothing happened again, and I was just like, okay, well, it seems like this might work out. And then by the end, I was just furiously refreshing it. But I was like, I can't turn it on. Stayed out this long.
Yeah, no, I agree. That's the obvious move there. When he's got a quarterback and a receiver and needs 8 points and it's the middle of the fourth quarter and he still doesn't have it. That's not the time to be turning the game on. At that point, you can't change whatever momentum you have. So I agree. Obviously, the smart move. Joe, you got any thoughts on that one?
Nope.
Oh.
Where do we think this ranks on this scale of worst losses all time in the league?
It's up there. I don't. You would have a better knowledge of this than I would, but it felt bad.
I mean, this is just not a thing that happens to you. That's the.
No, you're right. I've never lost a playoff game where I scored more points than my opponent, and a loss because of some cockamamie rule. That's never happened to me. You're absolutely correct.
It did feel like revenge from that defensive stat correction game, but also then like a little extra from there. But
yeah, I mean, I can think of like a few. So like there's different scales of like horrible way to lose a game. And obviously it makes it worse if it's like a playoff game. So like Hunter losing the championship to Joe when Philip Lindsay gets hurt, like that's obviously horrible because it's a championship and it was like, 0.3 points or whatever. But this was maybe the most like outrageous ending to a game where he gets no points all night, but it's like basically a foregone conclusion that eventually he's going to get there because he's got a quarterback, and like quarterbacks just constantly get points. Then he passes you up and then throws a pass for negative yards and then leaves the game, all of which happened after he broke his hand. So Dak stayed in the game to give Joe the lead and then to lose the lead and then went out, which was unbelievable. Maybe I think this might be the worst loss of all time in terms of how the game went down. I think for me, the one that sticks to me is obviously the Geno Smith one, because I was involved in it, where there was a game where Geno Smith came in at the end and threw a pick, and Thomas I think Geno was on the Cardinals and Thomas had the Jets defense in that game.
Oh, it's the opposite. He was on the Jets.
Geno was on the Jets. Thomas had the Cardinals defense. It was a whole bunch of bullshit. Like, that one sticks with me, but I don't think that was this bad. And then, yeah, there was the defensive stat correction last year, which was obviously, I mean, that's just a horrible way to lose a game also. So I don't know, but this is definitely up there. And it's definitely un-Joe-like.
And then Christian McCaffrey had a like 25-yard run that didn't count for stats because it was technically a fumble recovery, and those don't count for stats.
Yeah, that did rub some salt on the wound.
Yeah, and then there's the fact that Derek Carr took 2 straight sacks at the end of the game.
A starting quarterback this week. Let's go.
Yeah, he basically cost you the game last week, even though he wasn't on your team. So yeah, no, there's a bunch of ways to spin it that are just absolutely dreadful. But anyway, I guess we can get back to you, Austin. What did you think about your team's performance overall? Obviously, not exactly a high scoring performance, but to come away with the win in week 1, it's got to feel like mission accomplished, I guess.
Yeah, it felt like I might have leached a little bit of Joe's luck, honestly. Because like started off bad with Cam Akers scoring 0, and then just freaking out for like a couple days, and then basically was freaking out until Sunday night. But we pulled it out, and I'm happy for the squad, except for Cam.
Yeah, nothing like a coach on the opening Thursday night to really get the season off to a good start. But I was talking to Joe about this. I used to think, and I kind of had this belief that like, well, whoever has the better team, eventually luck's going to right itself, and towards the end of the season, they'll end up in the playoffs, and they'll end up, having the better team coming down the stretch. But it turns out that's just not true. And actually, the only thing that matters is like winning these games. And so, like, when your team has a terrible performance and you have a starting running back get 0, and your first round pick Alvin Kamara get 6, and then your quarterback plays awful, and somehow you still pull out a win, that's all you can ask for. That's as good as scoring 140 points in a week, in my opinion.
Oh yeah, I couldn't be happier. It's a great week.
Yeah,
stressful while it was happening.
So I guess as far as your team goes, the main thing to ask is where do we stand in the Cam Akers situation? Is he like nearing the cut list? Are you gonna roll him out there again, or what are we thinking?
They're playing the Falcons, so I mean he's not gonna start this week, but it's a big week for him. I didn't get any of the hot running backs on the waiver wire this week, but if someone else pops out, Cam's in the hot seat for sure.
seats getting warm. Yeah, so you got looks like in lineup right now you got Raheem Mostert, and then Kamara. Obviously you'll be sticking with him, but not a lot of depth in the running back room. So that's definitely a position of need, something to watch for. How are you feeling about the squad overall after the week 1 win?
I'm pretty happy with all of my receivers. Like DK, I was a little worried about, but it seemed like he was at least getting a lot of the catches. He's still very involved. So he got back in the lineup this week, and I'm hoping they can carry me.
Yeah, I mean, if Michael Thomas can be the Michael Thomas of old, which you kind of look like in the second half, then yeah, with Tyreek Hill, Terry McLaurin, DK, him, you got a pretty good depth in the receiver room to maybe offset the running backs a little bit. I think Trey Lance will end up being fine. I mean, he was running all over the place. It was just they were playing in a swimming pool. So
Yeah, I can't judge them for that game because God knows what was happening.
yeah, no, it's kind of sucks to be starting a quarterback in that game because it's essentially impossible to throw the ball.
Yeah, but at least he could run some.
Yeah.
Yeah, who'd ever start like a receiver or pass catcher in that game? What an idiot.
I did.
No, I was making fun of myself too, because I also did.
Both of y'all did, yeah. Well, Joe, what other questions do you have?
Nothing much. I guess kind of the only thing for me is looking at the bench here. You were able to pick up Brandon Ayuk. What were the thoughts going through your head when you saw Brandon Ayuk hit the waiver wire, and how aggressively did you want to pursue him?
I really wanted him in the draft, so and then just dropped him. I was kind of shocked, honestly. So then I went after him, and like he dropped him so early, or like I just like had so much time to think about it, I guess. And so my price just slowly went up and up, but I would have gotten him with my first bid, but I'm happy with it, I think. Basically, Madison might hopefully get to play a game soon, and then one of these 3 wide receivers will also do good, and then we'll be like, I'll be pretty happy. Just one, honestly.
Yeah, I think he was probably the best player to hit the waivers in the preseason. I think, obviously after week 1, like with the Jeff Wilson situation, you have some running backs that had good opportunity. But before the season started, I think that was definitely the best player to be on waivers. So yeah, at some point this year you'll be able to play him. It's always good to have depth, especially now with the season being longer and people are always getting hurt and stuff. So I think it's a good pickup.
Yeah, and like I said, the rain, who can't really tell, but it was good to see him get like a decent bit of points.
Yeah, and then
Still.
the other question to ask, so obviously you got off to a hot start. You won the championship your second year in the league. Then you won 8 games a year after that, 10 games a year after that. Then the last 2 years kind of fallen on hard times a little bit. Obviously last year, you kind of had pretty unfortunate scheduling luck. It seemed like every team kind of showed up well against you last year. So what is your thoughts on the state of the franchise? How are the what's the fan base thinking? Is it getting time to make it back into the playoffs or what?
I mean, yeah, the playoffs are always the goal, but I think, yeah, my attitude this year has just we've been a lot more chill. We're just trying to have fun. Last year we were trying to be a little too serious, and then it got immediately karma for it. So we're just gonna try and keep the vibes good.
Yeah, I like that strategy. I know from experience that the more you care, the worse fantasy is, as it turns out. It's probably so. I'm with that strategy this year. Maybe if we care less, the results will come.
Exactly. It's like a active measured caring.
Yeah. We do like you want to care about as much as Cam Akers when it comes to pass protection. You want to give it a thought, but then when the going gets tough, just be ready to bail.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe a little more than Cam Akers and pass protection.
Do you have anything else to add?
I don't think so. It's just been a draining week, so I'm ready to move on to the picks.
Yeah, for those who don't know, Joe has now retired from talking about fantasy football in any capacity besides the podcast. So this is the only time Joe will be talking fantasy for this entire year, I think.
We'll see.
I respect that.
All right, so we'll do some picks.
All right. So fittingly, we will start with the matchup between your 2 co-hosts here. I play Parker this week. Parker's projected 117.7, most in the league. I'm projected 108.4. Freshly down a quarterback and freshly down a terrible loss. and Parker is riding very high. I'll get this started. Parker's going to win easily. This isn't a reverse jinx or anything. There's not a single position looking down this matchup that I am better at Parker than. And if he doesn't beat me by more than 9 points, that's honestly a joke, and he should be embarrassed of himself. So Parker will win this one going away.
All right. Well, that is certainly a take. You know, as you know from the new team name, I haven't beat Joe since we were sophomores in college in 2015. So it's been a long time. But you know, after that week 1, it's hard not to have faith in the team. So I'm gonna go ahead and pick myself. I think I got a chance this week. You know, the lineup, this is gonna be a difficult coaching week this week for me because I got about 4 guys that I can play in the flex, and I don't know which 2 to pick. So I'm fairly certain that I'll end up just picking the wrong 2. But I kind of agree with your analysis, Joe. You know, your team's banged up. You're down Dak. You don't know if you could trust CeeDee Lamb. So pretty much across the board, I should have the advantage on paper. So you know what? If there was a year that I was going to beat you, I think this is it. If I don't win this one, I might never beat you again.
All right, yeah, I think I'm gonna have to agree, but I do think it's gonna be a little closer than y'all are acting, because I think Parker, you are gonna probably pick the wrong flexes, and like that Daryl Henderson 15 points, like that's just not happening.
Yeah, no, I don't know what that projection's about. I'm pretty much between. I got to play 2 out of Edmonds, Singletary, Lazard, and Julio Jones, and I mean, like, I feel like I could just put 4 names in a hat and draw 2 and see what happens because they're all very similar to me. So yeah, whoever I pick is going to be wrong, I'm sure.
Well, I have to play 2 out of CeeDee, Mooney, ETN, or Josh Palmer.
Yeah, I mean, you play 3 out of those.
Or yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't mean to say Waddle. He's locked in, but Josh Palmer, CeeDee, ETN, and Mooney. Yeah. But yeah, so anyway, we'll move on. And so the next matchup will be Morgan versus Colin. Colin is projected 113.9, Morgan 104.4. Both of these teams started out with a loss. So we'll have a 1-1 team and we will have an 0-2 team at the end of this one. That's how that works. I am going to take Colin. I think he just has a better team. Morgan's team is a little beat up. We don't know if T is going to play. We think Najee Harris is going to play, but you know, the Patriots have a good defense. And so, yeah, I don't love the state of Morgan's team right now. Colin, I still like it. So I'm going to take Colin to win here.
I think, I mean, look, Colin's a better team in this one. Morgan's injured. So it's going to be hard for me to pick Morgan in this one. I do like the Jeff Wilson acquisition, and I think T. Higgins will be back, and I kind of think Najee will be okay. So maybe his team's not as injured as we think. But it's just remarkable to me that Colin was able to assemble this team with spending as much as he did on quarterbacks. Because you could argue this is one of the best teams in the league, and that's even given the fact that he's got Patrick Mahomes on the bench. So we'll see. At some point, I'm sure he's going to try and make a move with Patrick Mahomes. But even without, he's a better team in this one. I'll take Colin.
I'm gonna take Morgan.
So living situation doesn't have anything to do with that?
No, not at all. I do think he has a solid chance.
Yeah, I mean,
Jalen Hurts probably gonna do good. Like unless these people don't play. Like if Najee and T don't play, then.
Well, I mean, yeah, I do think, you know, you obviously have the tendency to, like, because it's the only data point we have after week 1, it's so easy to overreact. And Morgan's team, maybe just like as far as like vibes in the clubhouse, took the biggest hit after week 1 because he's already thin at running back. Najee goes down. Damian Pierce isn't involved. T. Higgins gets hurt, and it just looks like everything's going to hell in a handbasket. So of course, it's easy to sit here the next week and just go, "Oh, he's screwed." But yeah, I agree. I think Colin seems better on paper, but I don't think it's crazy far apart. I think they're probably, you know, if they played 10 times, it would probably be like 5-5 or 6-4, just because of how fantasy football works. So I agree with you, but I do think Colin's team is slightly better.
Yeah, I agree. I had them close in the power rankings last week. So, but Morgan, yeah, I didn't even mention Keenan. Like Morgan's team is just very beat up right now. So we'll move on to Hunter, who is playing Ben. Hunter, big favorite in this one, 113.6 to 98, the projection. I think me and Parker have made our thoughts pretty clear on both of these teams, even just 2 weeks into this podcast. You gotta like Hunter big. We hated Ben's team after the draft. I certainly did, and he did nothing last week to dispel my previous notions of it. So, and Hunter obviously had a big win, big performance. So I will pretty easily take Hunter here.
Austin, I'll let you go first this time, or second, I guess, but before me.
Hunter, easy.
Yeah, I mean Hunter's team. This is another one where it's like Hunter's team's better. I think that the only position that Ben has an advantage at is tight end. With Kyle Pitts against Hayden Hurst. Pretty much everywhere else across the board, Hunter has an advantage and maybe a fairly sizable one. So while I'm maybe rising on Ben's team a little bit, I still have Hunter as far and away the number one team in the league. So yeah, I'll take Hunter too. Make it a clean sweep.
Okay, that would track. So we'll move on to Zach and Thomas. Zach is a projected winner, 112.1 to 105.1. Bigger spread than I would have thought, but both these teams coming off of a nice win in week one. So Parker, we'll let you start with this one. What do you think about this matchup?
Well, I think that Zach's team shouldn't be favored here. I think Thomas's team is better. I love Joe Mixon's usage in week one. I think people are overreacting to Allen Robinson. They're not going to be able to force feed Cooper Kupp the ball that much every game. I loved how involved Juju was. I really am actually pretty high on Thomas's team. And I think his team is just better than Zach's, even though he's an underdog. I think people are giving Saquon way too much credit after week one. I had him on my team last year, and I can tell you that is not a fun ride to be on. The Giants suck. They still do. Daniel Jones is garbage. I'll take Thomas pretty handily.
Austin?
I'm gonna disagree. Actually, I'm gonna take Zach because I think his running backs are just they just a little better this week than Thomas is. So I'm gonna give him the edge on that. The only thing I'm iffy on is Marvin Jones, but I think he'll make up for that.
I'm gonna agree with Parker. I really was impressed with Thomas's team in week one, and I definitely rose on Zach's team a lot more, especially Saquon was a huge part of that. But I was really impressed by Swift and Javonte for Thomas, and I think Breece is only gonna get better mix and will have better games. Obviously, Allen Robinson will too, or at least we think so. So yeah, I'm pretty high on Thomas's team at the moment, and I'll take him to pull the upset here.
Good thing we have Austin on the show because me and Joe have picked the same thing for 4 straight games.
Oh, we really? Yeah, that's probably not a good sign if we're picking you. So 2 more matchups. We will move on to Nick, coming off the big win against facing Grant, which is second place versus third place from last year. So a big early season matchup here, and Nick is a 4.5 point favorite, 111.5 to 107. Austin, what do you think about this matchup?
I think Nick and his shiny new wide receivers are gonna win another game.
Nice and succinct, Parker.
I'm gonna take Grant here. I think we've seen against the Saints, Mike Evans gets shut down. They lock him in a box and put him away. He's not gonna get anything going to this game. Leonard Fournette's they're gonna pound Leonard Fournette on the ground, even though the Saints have a good run defense. Grant won't make the same mistake of starting injured players this week. We've seen the last several years things just go Grant's way. There's no way he's dropping his first 2 to start the season. Can't see it happening. I love Nick's team, but I like Grant's team even more this week.
So yeah, I guess we'll get our first disagreement. I'm obviously very high on Nick's team this season. And I think there's a little bit of juju here this season with me and Grant. Some of the good fortunes of seasons past might be flipping. And so I think Grant's gonna start 0-2. I love Herbert and that big game that'll be tonight. That'll be high scoring against Kansas City. AJ Dillon, and the one concern I have about Nick is Zeke, but really everybody else on his roster I love. So yeah, I'm gonna take Nick. I still like his team pretty handily over Grant. So our last matchup of this week will be Austin, who is taking on Dan. You are a 1.6 point favorite, 103.6 to 102. And we'll let you we'll kick off your thoughts on this.
Yeah, I think I got pretty lucky with Elijah Mitchell getting hurt, which made it a lot more even. So I think, obviously I'm gonna bet on myself. I think I'm gonna win. Yeah, it's just Jamar and Joe stack. Like, as long as that doesn't go crazy, I think I have a pretty good shot.
I'm gonna agree with you actually, and I still don't fully see it with Dan's team. Obviously, Kelsey and Jamar are studs, but and he got the big game out of Kareem Hunt last week. But Chris Godwin might not play. You obviously lost Elijah Mitchell. Those are two pretty key injuries for him. So yeah, I'm gonna take you to win here. I do think it'll be kind of close. I think that spread is pretty fair. I think you could potentially squeak out another one. Probably not quite as close as last week, but yeah, I do like you barely here. Parker?
Well, I think Austin wins this one, but I'm actually going to take the over. You can't give me a 204 point total and expect me to not hammer the over on that one. Too many touchdowns going to be in the air for this to be a 204 point over. In 2022, we cannot be having totals that low. So that's an easy number for me. That being said, on the actual analysis of the game, I think that there's mismatches all over the field. Dan's got Travis Kelsey at tight end, is going to give him a huge advantage. And then Austin's got Kamara at running back, the only good running back in this matchup. That gives him a huge advantage. But what's going to determine it is the wide receiver ones. We got Tyreek Hill going against Jamar Chase. That's going to be what determines this game. I think Austin will take it, but give me the over.
I like that. You did hit on your over last week, so I do like that pick. So yeah, unless you have anything else, Parker?
I just want to hear it from Austin. Austin, who's the best team in the league right now?
I think it has to be Nick, based on I'm real big into the wide receivers this year, and he has the best ones, looks like.
Yeah, his top two receivers got about 40 targets week one, so
yeah,
I can't fault that take right now.
Sam or Hunter.
All right.
Yeah, I think another team can make its case.
Well, that's all I got, Joe.
Yeah. So thank you all for tuning in for week 2. I hated doing this podcast, but I'll get over it in future weeks. And yeah. So like, subscribe, comment, whatever they all say, and we'll see you next week.
This telecast is copyrighted by the NFL for the private use of our audience. Any other use of this telecast or of any pictures, descriptions, or accounts of the game without the NFL's consent is prohibited.
Happy to be here.
Yeah, thanks for coming on, Austin.
Yeah.
My team's in disarray, so my two wide receivers I traded away scored about 45 points. So
you didn't want to face the music this week?
Not this week. I'll come on for another disappointing week whenever the rest of my team gets hurt.
Hey, so you had at least one person pick you this week.
That is true. I have Najee playing. Oh, who picked me? Awesome.
Yeah, I got you.
Dude, what's true, homie? There's no shot, dude. I need Jarvis to do well and Rashad Bateman, and if that doesn't happen, there's no shot.
I was about to ask Austin when he picked you. Like, do we need you?
I think Collins seems better, but Collins seems not awesome. So
no, if T plays, that would be better. But if I mean, what the hell was I supposed to do in week 1 when 3 people leave in like the first half? It felt like it was just like,
Yeah,
other team was gonna beat my ass anyways. But
Keenan T and Najee, right?
yep.
Yeah.
Najee went out later in it though, but yeah, the other 2 were like,
Yeah, Najee was like right before overtime.
yeah,
Yeah, that blows.
yeah. I mean, I wasn't gonna win anyways. I mean, fucking Justin Jefferson had 35 fucking points.
That's true.
Well, turn out that the Packers game plan was apparently just like not cover Justin Jefferson and hope Kirk Cousins gets tired of throwing.
Bro, when I was watching that game, I was like, dude, how is he so open?
It was insane.
Every
Apparently
play.
he had zero catches against Jair Alexander, which is the Packers' top cornerback. And yet somehow he still had 180 yards and 2 touchdowns.
Yeah.
There was a couple clips of him juking Jair Alexander out of his shoes, but like off.
That's what I saw.
Oh,
I don't know.
I don't know. We'll see. Look, maybe my tight end will get more than a point this time. Look, we got a chance.
That would be ideal.
Yeah, 1 point from a tight end, 3 people get hurt.
You can only go up from
Look, I'm beating Cal.
We're back. Well, it's Monday night. A new week has begun. I turn on my TV for some pigskin fun. I see a Super Bowl season here on ABC. The biggest game each week is their specialty. I gotta get ready, make everything right. 'Cause Monday night football's coming on tonight. Are you ready? Hey. Are you ready? Are you ready? We're ready. Are you ready for some football? A Monday night party. Hey, this is rockin' random, Hank. Ready to get the good time started. We've got the teams on the field and we turned up the lights. All my rowdy friends are back for Monday night time. Watches this primetime show. New York, Nashville, San Francisco. We love to watch the kickoff as the game begins. Pretty cheerleaders and last-minute wins. The screaming crowd and the linebackers stare. Scrambling quarterbacks and receivers in the air. Big hits are coming, the backs are cutting inside. Everybody turns it up